President Trump has released a list of donors paying for his White House ballroom. Is it in fact exactly who we suspected it is? Major multinational corporations all hoping that the government transfers them some of our hard-earned tax money. We're going to talk about just why they've done it and if the White House is already stabbing them in the back. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. But before we crack into it, of course, guys, if you want to allow me to continue to cover these truthful stories honestly, you guys can support me on combatvetnews.com. You guys know sponsors won't touch me given that I'm critical of the administration, but you guys continue to have my back, and I appreciate you so much, including, of course, some of you guys who don't want to be publicly acknowledged. I get that. It's a tough environment out there, but I appreciate you nonetheless. So the link is in the description if you want to join us. Now, President Trump has dropped, of course, 37 White House ballroom donors, but it's not clear at all if this is even true, if this is actually the complete list, or if this is just sort of the big donors, or if there are even other bigger donors, because the list doesn't actually have how much was donated, so we have no idea if this is an exhaustive list. But it includes, of course, social media platforms like Meta, as well as Google, right, owner of YouTube, this very platform. It also includes Apple, right, who is, of course, frantically trying to get carve-outs from the Trump administration for their tariffs, because a lot of Apple products are made and sourced overseas. Of course, Meta, literally, Trump said he wanted to put Mark Zuckerberg in jail, so Mark Zuckerberg probably trying to stay out of jail, and is trying to build out a massive AI presence, something that, again, Facebook desperately wants to be able to write federal regulation on AI so that they can make it so that, you know, the rules are like, you have to be a huge corporation and own social media to build an AI. And Mark Zuckerberg goes, wow, it's only us. Of course, you have Amazon, old Jeffy Bezos, which has huge federal contracts with the Pentagon and other federal agencies, thanks to their cloud computing division, Amazon Web Services. And of course, there's been so much lobbying that, in fact, that the Jeff Bezos actually bought the Washington Post. Literally. You can even see, hilariously, the Washington Post is actually defending Trump's White House ballroom construction project, which is completely and utterly a joke, given that, again, the owner of the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, his company Amazon contributed massively to it. And it just kills me, right? Of course, even the Washington Post's own op-ed acknowledges that it's kind of insane, right? Even if they're like, well, technically, you know, the White House should really have a ballroom, but that's not the complaint. Like, it's not a crime to build a tacky ballroom. It's not even a crime to renovate the White House, but it is a crime to, for example, destroy a national park without congressional approval, which is actually what the White House technically is. It's also a crime not to comply with a congressional act about renovations in historic places that require you to, for example, ask a historian if, hey, should we save any of this stuff? So the fact that none of this happened is kind of comical. And the fact that Amazon is out here being like, yeah, but it'll be nice that we can have a dinner party, is a testament to just how out of touch you are when you're a billionaire. Now, next up on the list, Lockheed Martin. I don't need to tell you guys that your taxpayer money goes all the time to Lockheed Martin because they build a bunch of weapons and bombs. But more importantly, Lockheed Martin is actually sweating pretty hard right now because some of what they build is advanced systems that have competitors like Anduril trying to do it better, faster, and cheaper. They also build a lot of stuff for the space program, and SpaceX has been winning a lot of Lockheed contracts. So, given the fact that Lockheed has a whole bunch of contracts they're hoping to win, is it a bit troubling that they're writing checks to the president? Nah, that's crazy. Microsoft, right, by the way, has also multi-billion-dollar federal contracts and is a direct competitor of Amazon Web Services, which is crazy. You would think that these guys would just say, hey, instead of $25 million to a random Trump project, why don't we just simply lower the price of our contract? Why don't we just try to compete on price? Nah, that's crazy. That's capitalism. No way, right? And this is actually a big takeaway. I'm being sarcastic, but you have to understand that the reason state capitalism like this is less effective than a true free market is the reason I just described, right? Because if, let's say, the government says, listen, we don't have a favorite here. We are neutral on which company provides us with our cloud computing services. And so you have Amazon, you have Microsoft, and they say, listen, Amazon says, well, I'll do it for $100 million a year. Well, Microsoft says, I'll do it for $90 million a year. Well, Amazon says, I can do it for 80, right? Or they say, Microsoft says, well, I can give you a full suite of 24-hour tech support to everyone who uses it. Amazon says, I'll give you all that plus somebody in-house, in-building doing it. Microsoft says, well, I'll give you all that plus 2 years free, right? And so you can compete on service or on price. And the result is that these companies work tirelessly and they invest a lot of money in innovating, trying to build the better thing, right? It's why the US was so far ahead of AI because we have a super competitive free market tech sector where if you build it better, you get to keep it. That is not true in state capitalism. In state capitalism, which is what we're built, which is what this is, right? There is no incentive. The incentive is not to make your web platform faster or better or more competitive. The incentive is to transfer as much money as possible to the decision makers in the government, in this case, the president and his administration, and that by transferring that money to them, that you're buying favor, getting you the contract, even if you have the worst services. Now, this you can say, well, it's Amazon, Microsoft, it's just a bunch of data centers anyway. But the problem you get into is that these contracts apply to everything. So imagine if the contract of the company that fills the potholes in your city goes to the people who the mayor or your state senator or your representative get the most money from. Are they going to fill the potholes fast? In fact, if they have enough buying power, then why fill the potholes at all? And here's the other thing. If you're Amazon and Microsoft, let's say one of them Trump says, I love you, Microsoft. I want you to get all the contracts. Well, what's going to happen? Microsoft wins the contracts, uses that revenue to kick back some of the money to administration officials. And so Amazon gets slowly starved and withered, and Microsoft wins. And in fact, they get so dominant, it's easy, again, to say, why fill potholes at all? Let's just get the contract and just pocket the money because we're going to win it. No one else can possibly win it. And that's where you end up with, again, the third world style corruption. That's why you can't get anything done in any developing country, is because this is the sort of crooked stuff we see. Now, more companies, of course, are writing checks. And I want to talk about these specifically two. First off is the Comcast, T-Mobile, and let's see if we can find it here. Basically Comcast, right? Comcast is unique because of this, right? So Warner Brothers Discovery, a large media conglomerate, is putting itself up for sale. And again, in a free market, you have a company that goes, listen, it's too complex for us to compete in the streaming world. Someone should buy us out and merge with us. I'm opening offers. And in a competitive world, people say, well, I can make your company, I can merge your library with Netflix's streaming service, and we'll be even bigger than ever. And someone like Comcast can say, well, we reach millions and millions of homes, and we own a movie studio, so we can use your IP to do a movie. And they bid up the process, and the market discovers the price, right? Meaning that the shareholders of Warner Brothers Discovery, which, by the way, if you own an S&P 500 ETF, if you own a mutual fund in your retirement, that's you. You are the part owner of this. So you have a reason to make sure that Warner Brothers Discovery sells for the most money it can. Well, that's why the administration says, listen, FYI, guys, anybody can bid, but literally, this is directly from a Trump administration official to the New York Times. These are some direct quotes. Who owns Warner Brothers Discovery is very important to the administration, according to a senior Trump administration official told On the Money, a news outlet. They continued, the Warner board needs to think very seriously, not just on the price competition, but which player the suitor pool has been successfully getting a deal done. And that points to the Ellisons. So he says, I want CBS to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, the other suitors, the other people who might buy and compete on price are Netflix, Amazon, and Comcast. Interesting that 2 of those 3 made massive donations to the Ballroom. Wow. Again, wouldn't it be better for shareholders, you and me, if Comcast, instead of donating $25 million to the Trump Ballroom, Comcast said, hey, I'm just going to offer Warner Brothers Discovery $25 million more to get this deal done. But literally, the federal government has said, the FCC and the Justice Department's Antitrust Division, we are going to stop you other guys from doing this. But if Larry Ellison does it, we're just going to let the deal sail right through, right? For Comcast, literally, the administration says that you guys own NBC, which airs Saturday Night Live, which makes fun of the president, and that's not okay. Weird. Whoa, freedom of speeching a little too hard there, Comcast, right? And here's what I thought was hilarious. The official added, quote, and look at the misspellings here. Maybe Brain Roberts, that's the CEO of Comcast, comes up with a W, grand detente with the president, but I don't think it will happen that way, and that's the key. Stupid, right? Now, of course, the White House says, well, if Netflix or Amazon buys it, there might be antitrust concerns. Not so if CBS Paramount buys it, of course. So, like, the Warner Brothers Discovery CEO literally says he believes he can make a case to the Trump administration that they should allow deals outside of Paramount Skydance, appealing to free market types in the administration. Guys, in a free market, you shouldn't have to appeal to the government to allow your market to be free. That's not how capitalism works. And the fact is that that bidders have to write checks or believe they have to write checks to Trump's project to get this deal done is, like, again, disgusting, but it's also actively stealing money from you and me, the shareholders of these companies, and transferring it to the president's personal projects. All of these bids all of this money should be going into making a better, more competitive bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. And again, those of us that hold stocks or ETFs or mutual funds, we have an incentive to get the most value for these companies. And that money should be in our pockets, but it's not. It's going to the administration. Same thing with Palantir, a huge government contractor. I don't need to tell you about them. Same with all of these crypto companies. Look at all the crypto companies: Coinbase, Ripple, Tether, right? Even, here's the insane part, Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick's own family is literally writing some of these checks. Literally, he's getting a gift from his own secretary for giving him the position. This is insane. Now, even if you argue, as the Supreme Court says, that government ethics law doesn't apply to the president is literally above the law, like a king might be. But he's not above the Constitution, supposedly. The Constitution says that the president or other federal officials cannot accept any present, emolument, office, title, or of any kind whatsoever from any king, prince, or foreign state without the consent of Congress, right? And they may think, well, technically none of those people are kings, princes, or foreign states, which is, I would argue, not even that true. Because what is a prince? A prince doesn't rule. He's not the governor. He doesn't govern. He's just a rich guy. He's just a rich guy in another country. But actually, it says any king, prince, or foreign state. So it could literally just be a rich guy. And the domestic emoluments clause says the president can't literally get any kind of salary or emolument from the United States or any individual state. So that individual states can't put undue pressure on the president. Right? So I'm fascinated with the idea that this is like cool, that this is all right. And a lot of people are going to sit there and tell you, well, listen, other monuments in DC, other things in the National Mall were built with private donations, notably the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, which was paid for by the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. But the key is that this nonprofit, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, was literally authorized by Congress to fund this memorial. So it doesn't violate any clause because Congress authorized it. That is how the U.S. government is supposed to run. Money flows through Congress and with congressional approval, right? And donations, unlike 37 companies with significant government contracts, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial came from over 300,000 individual Americans, veteran groups, civic organizations, corporations, and foundations. So again, Congress is the one who should be managing all this. But understand that this isn't like this ballroom is taking things, not just it's taking literal money out of your pocket, money that should be going to shareholders in a free market system. It's spitting on the free market system as a concept. But more importantly, it is taking things, right? It is taking aspects of governance of our country, and that should be that we as the citizens of this country should be weighing in on. We have a right as citizens to have our elected representatives in Congress weigh in, say, yes, this is okay to do this, because the national parks are held by all of us. And we have a right to say, listen, I want to know who's getting these government contracts. It's my taxpayer money. I should know if the government contract went to the lowest bidder or the one who contributed to the president's ballroom. I want to know if the people writing the regulation about cryptocurrency have my interest in mind as a citizen and investor, or if it's being written to favor the people that wrote checks for the president's ballroom. And this is not a new problem for the US government, but it is a problem that is going from a troubling trickle to a flood, to simply saying this institution doesn't matter. We're not even going to do window dressing. You write a check and we, the administration, will make sure that we hook you up as much as we can. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Thanks to GMAC Club, Henry Russier, James Porsche, Paul, and Peter Fucci, as well as all of our Lieutenant Tier members. We couldn't do it without you guys. I appreciate you so much. See ya. Cheers.